What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Z Money. Round one is in the books. As per usual, you just are always given a little something you don't expect right when you think you've got it figured out. Bog reminds you why, even if you think it's a boring playoff stream, you should watch. So we're going to talk about round one, predict round two, and that's all we're going to do. So let's get into it. All right, starting at the bottom, the Hawks beat the Wizards. Not a lot to talk about here. If anything, this just confirmed how I felt about both teams. I don't like the Wizards. They obviously lost. They didn't look fantastic in doing so. I didn't like the Hawks, and they didn't exactly look great beating up on the 8-seeded Wizards. They were winning games by like 10 points pretty consistently, but nothing super sexy was happening. Keegan Murray is on day-to-day injury. I don't know what he's going to do about Keegan Murray. I'm just going to assume he gets played. I think against the Heat, who are a quality matchup, you just got to go full guns blazing. The Heat, who I liked a lot against the Nets, absolutely clapped the Nets, a sweep. There was a big question about how would the Heat interior attack look against Claudio Villanueva, look against Carmichael Brown. The answer is they looked very good. American who's a jump shooting guy, continued to look like only okay, but Arthas looked fantastic. He absolutely dismantled Claudio Villanueva. Almost 30 points per game, 60% true shooting. So, age clearly got to the Nets front court. There wasn't high expectations for the Nets in the first place, so this isn't exactly shocking, but it happened. Also, Takashi, who's an inside-oriented guy, also insanely efficient, 64% true shooting, although he had lower volume than Arthas. Okay, so Heat versus Hawks. I like this matchup a lot. I think the Heat are, I don't know if a more talented team, but I like their team composition a lot more. They have players that I think will do well in the playoffs, while the Hawks have been perennial chokers. The Hawks is going to come down to their interior defense because, again, the Heat are a big inside attack team. And the Hawks' interior defense, in my opinion, is about equivalent to what we saw out of the Nets in round one, which is that it's okay. Granny, he's got the 8 post defense. He doesn't block shots. He's not a god tier athlete anymore. He's still a good athlete. And then at the power forward slot, Marty Taylor, like the ratings are okay. The athleticism is okay. He's almost a spitting image of Claudio at this point, although he fouls more than Claudio. So all of those things I said make me really want to favor the Heat. In addition, Takashi, who's the third option on this Heat team, he doesn't have a tough matchup. He's going to get probably put against Jason Jackson or against Jamel Abraham, who are both fine. These are not like the worst defenders to put in the world. They're kind of like these A- half athletic guys, right? They have like a quickness and maybe a jump or maybe a strength, but not across the board A's like Takashi has. So I keep finding myself saying like, well, I really like the Heat. From that perspective, I do think the Heat will have success going on the inside, and it could work out really well for them. For the Hawks side of things, I think the big difference for the Nets when the Heat were doing so well versus what the Hawks will offer is that the Hawks can actually attack on the inside back against the Heat, while the Nets couldn't. Granny is obviously probably the most prolific scorer between these two teams, at least historically. And so the American inside D, I'm always a bit skeptical of. I think that will be the matchup. Granny will be playing center. And I could see Granny getting a lot of points off of that. Furthermore, there's this whole Hawks magical inability to turn the ball over. I think in Game 5 or Game 4 in the series against the Wizards, the Hawks turned the ball over 7 times, which is insane for a game. The interesting thing to play out, because I don't really know how to feel about like turnovers. I always think of them as just a thing that happens, is the Heat are the best team at forcing steals, and the Hawks are like this generational don't turn the ball over team. So I'm kind of just generally curious to see when push comes to shove which side wins. I think that could be a big factor. If the Hawks continue to not turn the ball over, I think they will continue to win. I think if the ball, if these teams get an even amount of possessions, it's a bit of a wash. I think the Heat have that great inside attack, but the Heat don't necessarily have the defense that I love to stop some of the Hawks' attack on their own, especially Granny. So this turnover differential could be the battle. I think this is going to be a razor-thin series. I think this will go to 7. I find myself wanting to pick the Heat, and I think I will pick the Heat. I really, this Hawks team has just consistently let me down. Granted, Alex has done the same many times, but I really do think they got a good shot. I was ready to be inspired by the Hawks in round one. They're a 70-win team. They've been crushing the East all season. I was not inspired. Meanwhile, the Heat looked like exactly what I thought, which is a very good team. So I'm big upset. The East could lose its 2 top seeds if my shitty predictions are correct. We would be putting a wild team into the finals against an absolute juggernaut from the West. All right, next top half of the Eastern bracket. The Pacers and the Magic, big upset alert. Right when you think you know what you're going to get from the RBSL, you get a curveball. Pacers Magic was the curveball. What the hell happened? I think the big specific matchup that I didn't think about or expect, I touched on it slightly, but it was more intense than I ever would have imagined. Jake, who made a really good game plan choice, which I really liked, in putting Braxton Hicks at point guard. Braxton Hicks, A-plus post defender, 6'10", quick enough, absolutely annihilated Shane Sullivan defensively. I mean, Shane Sullivan, I'm going to go pull up the number. I think he shot 400 true shooting on the game and at extreme volume. There were some wild choke games from Sullivan. 47%. Okay, 40 is a little, 400 a little short. 47% true shooting, and he did that on 23 points per game. So he was hard tanking the offense. And it's not hard to see why. Shane Sullivan is a midget. He's not a particularly athletic midget at that. And he was put against an athletic 6'10 guy. You know, height and athleticism, I always believe, are the ways you stop the 3-ball. And it worked in this case. There were some things that happened on the margins as well. The Magic kind of shot the ball a little better than you would have ever expected them to. They have a bunch of these guys who are not good three-point shooters that all, even though they weren't at super high volume, got away with some shockingly good percentages. Troy Gassaway, Braxton Hicks, Shaedon Sharpe, all were shooting like north of 40% true shooting. And I don't think the Pacers have, outside of Shane at point guard, I like Wendell Moore, I like Joe Sandberg, and even that other shitty guy who the Pacers played, Bluey Healer. He's a good defender. So it was definitely surprising to see the Magic shoot that well. The Magic turned this into a close series with their great move. And then they got a little bit of the bog love with the three-point shooting distribution. Also, I think the starting of Bluey Healer and not starting Wendell Moore, just a mistake. Bluey Healer is just a bad player, in my opinion. I get he's a good defensive specialist, but I just don't get why you were going for defensive specialty against a Magic team that doesn't have offensive specialists. Like, Shaedon Sharpe is the best offensive player, or at least on the perimeter, and he's 59% true shooting his entire career. It's like, I'm willing to live with that and in return give offense back since he's not a great defender. So, Magic, well done. Jake, you got the upset. What will certainly be the upset of the playoffs unless something crazy like the Jazz lose happens. In the other matchup, 76ers beat the Celtics. Not a lot to talk about here. I hated the Celtics. The 76ers, we saw their defense look like shit and give up a lot of points to a team that I think is awful. But otherwise, this kind of went exactly how everybody expected. The complete lack of an interior defense from the Celtics let Omer Rosenberg just go for like 35 points a game on 65% true shooting. So not too much to talk about there. So the Magic versus the 76ers, very interesting matchup. I really don't like the 76ers. I think the Magic match up better against the 76ers than the Celtics do. The Magic have real big men. They have Milan Garrett and they have Thomas Line, and they're both real big men who play some defense. They have size. Their athleticism is okay. They're not foul machines. So I think they'll do all right. And in addition, I think Zhang Fang could be an interesting guy who can give a little offense back against the 76ers. So what will happen with Omer Rosenberg? This is a really good question. I'm very interested. Can we, exploring layouts, can we go away? Thank you. I think we're going to find out, Omer Rosenberg is on the gel spectrum. That goes without saying. Where on the spectrum does he lie? This is going to be the telltale game. It's one thing to tear apart a team that literally has no quality big men. It would be another thing to tear up the Magic, who have what I would consider, why does this keep happening? I'm just going to close something really quick. There we go. All right, thank you for bearing with me. It's another thing for Omer Rosenberg to tear up a couple real big men who I would consider like average playoff quality. This isn't the best front court in the league, but they're not bad either. So this will be the measuring stick. And it's really going to ride or die with Omer. As we've seen, yes, other guys will get the ball. Yes, we will probably see Bubba Day get a chance to score 20 to 30 points once or twice in his series. Same goes for Richard Pollard. But Omer is going to get the ball more than anybody. And if he fails, then this team's going to fail hard. And if he does okay, then this team's going to win. I think this will also be a pretty razor-close series. The 76ers have home court. From the Magic side, I think the thing that scares me about the Magic is the way they got away with things offensively in the last series was off of a little bit of some favorable three ball. And the thing about the three ball is like good defense or bad defense, it's not going to matter a ton, especially when you have these like giant athletes who are chucking, right? Like Troy Gassaway, Braxton Hicks, Shaedon Sharp. They're all tall. But none of them have good three ball ratings. So it's truly just like roll the dice and see how your B, A-, C+ three ball guys go. I can see that being a very big factor. Zhang Feng interests me. I think I did this already, but I got confused because of all the shit popping up on my screen. If you can find a way to get Zhang Feng the ball a lot, that would be super sick. I could also see Chase Martinez being a good X factor. You just want a guy that you can force the ball to on the inside to beat up on the 76ers. Zhang feels like he could be that guy. Chase Martinez feels like he could be that guy. I just worry the way the Magic will lose this is by getting bad percentages out of dudes who are shooting threes and jump shots and not going inside enough. That's the way the Magic lose this. The path to victory is the ball goes to Thomas Line, the ball goes to Milan Garrett, the ball goes to Zhang Feng or Chase Martinez, and they minimize jump shots because obviously 76ers can't stop anything. I like this series a lot. 7 as well. I'm going to pick the Sixers in this one. They have home court, and the Magic just have a lot of question marks offensively that I'm not sure the 76ers' lack of defense will matter much for. Like, I don't think the 76ers will get penalized for not having good defense. Okay, let's go out west. Sonics beat the Nuggets. Sonics will play the Nuggets. Sonics beat the Timberwolves. You know, is it shocking that it was 4-2? Maybe. If you look at the way it all played out, it was like the Sonics win 4 mega blowouts by like 20, 30 points and then lose 2 close games. There's one interesting thing about the Sonics. So I don't know how I feel about clutch time in a game being different than the first, 45 minutes of a game, 42 minutes, 40 minutes of a game. But the Sonics are putting together an impressively bad season when it comes to close games. The Sonics have not won a single game all season decided by one possession. I believe they're 0-8 now that they lost a one possession game against the Timberwolves. And then if you extend that to 5-point games or 2 possession games, the Sonics are like 1-10. So the worrying part, if you're a believer that like there's some replicable thing that the Sonics have a problem in crunch time, the Sonics are clearly going to lose every close game they play. On the flip side, if you truly think it's RNG, well then, you know, you could take two sides. You could be like a pure Bayesian, I think is the right way to phrase it, person who says, well, going forward, they're all going to be 50-50. They're more or less close games. Or if you're a little more of the superstitious type, karmic justice, you could say like, well, they're actually due to come back from being 1-10 and hit the mean, so they're probably going to win a bunch. I don't really know how I feel about any of it. Why is it still? I'm not touching anything. Okay. Clearly I'm mucking something up. That shit's coming up on the screen. Anyhow, my point about the Sonics, there's a worrying trend in close games, and while they may be able to sneak by against the Nuggets without it, they'll definitely need that luck to come back for the Jazz if they get there. All right, Nuggets annihilate the Clippers. Clippers, the biggest disappointment by far. To give a little love to Doc, I will say this. Doc team performed absolutely horribly. I do think the absolutely pitiful numbers that we saw from Doc's team, I suspect both these teams had super, super, super low pace, the Nuggets and the Clippers, because we saw a lot of point totals under 100. So what I think really happened is the Nuggets offense was fine. It was like a good league average offense, while the Clippers were just like a bottom 10, bottom 8 offense, exacerbated by the low pace. I don't think we saw like the worst offense of all time, which it kind of looks like by the raw numbers. 61, 73, 84, 80. That's how many points the Clippers scored. Pretty pathetic. Digging into the numbers, especially for the Nuggets and what it means for the next series, Lester McQuaid continues to just not be able to crack the top centers in the league offensively. He's good defensively. He got 4 blocks a game. I don't think anyone's questioning that. But he just continues to only be a mid-offensive option. Mike Mortar shut him down. And look, Mike Mortar is a big, athletic A defender. But the reality is like, you're really looking for Lester to be the guy. And I think Lester just may never be the guy offensively. Maybe it's just because he doesn't hit his free throws. But I think for whatever reason, he just is a little short in the athleticism to truly crack the efficiency bar that he needs to hit to really like stand up well against all these great centers. And it's tough because we're in an era of great centers, right? If the Nuggets are to progress the whole way, if we go chalk the whole way except for the Nuggets winning, they get Seth Charles, top 5 center. Then they get Rycourt, top 5 center. Then they get Granny, top 5 center. It's just like relentless. And so it's a little bit of a worrying trend for the Nuggets. In terms of how these two teams match up, the big question, like there's a couple questions. In the front court, for the Nuggets, it's pretty locked. Like they could get a little fancy and try and bench Matthew Dorsey, although I don't know why you would do that because Dorsey generally is like okay. I think even if you worry about his size athleticism combo, he's your best option at power forward by a mile. And I don't know if I want Les Bugsell spending too much time on the court. So you worry about, obviously, the Sonics have Jason Treble and Seth Charles. Very switchable big men. Either can play power forward, either can play center. Both are very good. They fill different roles. Obviously, Treble more utility. Seth Charles is going to go put ball in hoop. So you worry a little bit about Seth Charles being moved to power forward. Although the flip side is that you don't then get Seth Charles to defend McQuaid. And we've seen those two, McQuaid and Charles, battle. And Charles holds his own quite well. It seems like a good 50-50 matchup. So it's like, why not nullify McQuaid and then just let Treble do his, even though he's only going to get 10 to 15 points per game, he's shown he'll just do that at like 70% true shooting against these tiny big men. Seems like a good way to capitalize. In the front court, I think the worry for the Nuggets is that, I mean, you want Ariagato. Ariagato is carrying this team. All right, so like I said, McQuaid, offensively, pretty mid-series, 55% true shooting. Yeah, the volume's high. Ariagato is continuing to have this like renaissance here. She just did 64% true shooting from that point guard slot. Really, the difference maker against the Clippers, in my opinion, was all Aria. She was just a beast. Not scoring in terms of volume, a crazy amount, but when you consider the scoring efficiency and the fact that she's doing all the passing for this team, it looks really good. Okay, so the problem with Aria is that against the Clippers, Aria got Victor Sandeep, who's a midget. And the worrying thing is that Michael Lewis is kind of lurking as this AA defender who not only could put a little more of the clamps on Aria being taller and having AA perimeter defense, but also Aria is not a good defender. And then you worry about Michael Lewis was held in check pretty well by what might be one of the best perimeter defense teams in the league, in the Timberwolves, right? You go look at the Timberwolves, there are 3 guys who they start. Olin is obviously the greatest perimeter defender of all time, arguably. Skeeter Jones and who's the other guy? I don't know. But they're both like 6'5 plus, good athleticism, A perimeter defense guys. And they only held Michael Lewis to 55, 56% true shooting. So you definitely worry about going to Ariagato, who has like C defense, getting cooked, and it could be problematic. It's an uphill battle for the Nuggets. That's not a new take to anybody. The Nuggets got absolutely rolled by the Sonics last season, and it was, again, a Nuggets team that I thought was better, having Skeeter Jones, who was younger and better than he was last season. All in all, I think the Nuggets will fall short. I think we'll probably see Michael Lewis look a little more like his regular season stat lines, but we might see some regression from Seth Charles. And then the other big thing is that I think can go overlooked is the Sonics bench is fucking devastating. Uh, like you just go look at the Sonics bench and you go look at JD Davison and you go look at Nay and it's like, and Tyler Jones, all these dudes are just putting up these disgusting lines in the 12 minutes they get. And this allows the Nuggets, or excuse me, this allows the Sonics to go run 10 pace, which makes it extra hard if the other team wants to go do the 48-minute starters thing. And then in those 10 minutes, they're maximizing the amount of possessions, but they have this wild advantage because the Sonics have like a borderline playoff team on their bench. So all in all, I think tough series for the Nuggets. The Nuggets will not get swept this time. They shouldn't have gotten swept in the first one, to be honest. I think this is a solid 4-2. There will definitely be a little drama. I kind of shat on the Nuggets the whole way, but the Nuggets, by all the stats, are a solid team. It's just that the Sonics and the Jazz are kind of in this other world. So I think the Sonics roll. Rockets versus Thunder. All right, this one I thought was going to be close, although I thought it was going to go for the Thundies. And I mean, this one was razor thin. There was a 1-point game 6, and, you know, Bryant snuck away by the skin of his teeth to get that one. The Rockets on the whole, how they looked, Richard Johnson looked extremely flawed. Richard Johnson did have a couple highs where he was winning the team the game, but then you go back and you look at the aggregate stats for the round, and he was not very good. He does a lot of cool things, like beyond scoring the ball, which makes you like him. Like he was getting 3.5 stocks a game, but he is a foul liability, and his efficiency is actually awful. When you see that 40-point game he had, I think in game 2 or game 3 or game 1, and you're like, wow, this dude can score. Actually, 51.7% true shooting on 22 points a game. That's offensive liability territory. He does get some boards. He is arguably a good defender. I mean, fouling aside. But the guys who I was really impressed with on the guy who I was really impressed with on the Rockets was Denver Bradford. The Thunder, they're an inside-oriented team. Jalen Duren's going to the rack. Freaking Henry Piercy's going to the rack. There's someone else who Morris is going to the rack. Morris did great, and he's doing it from the guard position. But Jalen Duren and Henry Piercy were somewhere between held in check and absolutely shut down. So a lot of that was because of Denver Bradford, who was if I'm not mistaken, the starting big man for the Rockets in that series. Yeah, he was starting big man. He only got 25 minutes. And then, of course, Tom McDonald, who, hey, 7'6", he's gonna be hard to go on the inside against. So it was kind of the Rockets defense that came through. When you go back and look at the shooting percentages for the high volume scores for the Rockets, Julian Bowie was worse than you expected. I thought he would be better. Lucky Buckner was the only guy who actually scored at good efficiency, but he's only putting in 13 points a game. So again, defensive effort got the Rockets the win. The Thunder, look, this was a tough one. This is the problem with 7-game series. Your team can play well, and you can still lose. And so no shame for Jack and the Thunder. You tried. It was a valiant effort. Can't win them all. Jazz versus Suns, not a lot to talk about. Randy Brown, I think Palm could probably overthink whether or not you play Randy Brown this next series because I think he's slightly injured. Yeah, he's out for 6 games. I'm going to make this prediction like he's going to play Randy Brown. The thing for the Jazz that's interesting is, like, you could probably get away with just whooping the Rockets' ass without playing Randy Brown, and it would definitely be scary to play the Sonics without Randy Brown. I think that would be big time we could lose territory. But at the same time, what's the chance Randy Brown really gets re-injured? And, like, do you want to play, stupid games worrying about losing to the Rockets? I don't know. We'll see. The interesting thing about the Jazz versus Rockets is the Rockets just shut down a reasonably potent inside attack of the Thunder. Can they shut down unbelievably potent inside attack of the Jazz? Obviously, I think they can't. There's 2 big problems here. One, even if you play Denver Bradford and Tom McDonald and, like, use them as much as possible and forget all of your other inside guys, notably Richard Johnson, I still don't even know if it's enough to do anything to Rycourt. Rycourt had 1 stinker game against the Suns for no apparent reason. Suns have a bad inside defense also. But otherwise, Rycourt was up to Rycourt shit, basically just averaging 40 points on 23 or 4 shots, which is just lunacy. Can you really stop him? The average stats across the season basically say no. And then the double problem is that Rycourt really is a power forward guy. Richard Johnson really should be a power forward guy. Richard Johnson is a foul machine. And even if you want to move Richard Johnson to small forward, it's like then he gets Chance Roman. And there's a little bit of like the foul out effect, but the Jazz can live with Chance Roman fouling out. The Rockets, it's a lot tougher if Richard Johnson is fouling out because he's one of their best players. So, just, and that's not even getting to Randy Brown, who's just the best shooting guard in the league and is gonna, I don't even know who the Rockets will be putting against him. Maybe you I would personally put Julian Bowie at shooting guard, although I don't know what that would do to his shooting percentages. Because he seems like, big athleticism. You probably want to put him on the inside to stack that shot chart well. Like, Lucky Buckner is not the guy you want on Randy Brown. He just doesn't have the sauce. It's that simple. So all things considered, this will be an absolute waxing. I'll give the Rockets one game because of the Randy Brown injury and the Bryant effect, but I don't think we'll get a lot of drama. So at the end of the day, I think the West is cruising towards the expected big-time showdown of the Sonics versus the Jazz. The East is going to be saucy. This is a great round 2 to watch. I am very excited for both these East series. Look, the Hawks could well go down. The Sixers could well go down. We could have the 4 seed versus the 7 seed in what was considered a terrible conference to begin with. Like, could you imagine the 7-seeded Magic coming to the finals? Like, it seems like it's very possible. So some good drama. I do think, especially with the Pacers gone and how the Hawks looked in round 1, like, I would bet the house whoever comes out of the West, unless some wild shit happens and we get the Rockets out of the West. Even if the Nuggets come out of the West, I think the West is winning the finals. But anticipate some good drama. I'm excited. These are my predictions. Stay tuned for the good stuff tomorrow. And until then, stay breezy. No, wait. Until then,